The reason this comes up is because yesterday the Daily Mail leaked more of the tape from the George Floyd arrest. Like the minutes leading up to the 8-minute tape that we've all seen, that horrible tape of Derek Chauvin kneeling on George Floyd's neck. Okay, the media should have covered this responsibly from the beginning by including all the details, because maybe that would have led to a non-overcharge. Okay, there are a few things in the minutes leading up to George Floyd, the situation that we've all seen with Derek Chauvin with his knee on George Floyd's neck. There are a bunch of things in the minutes leading up that cut against the homicide case against Derek Chauvin. Okay, so just to sum these up. One, the police, when they arrest George Floyd, they tried to talk to him. They tried to be nice to him. They did this for many long minutes. Second, there were other people in the car, which I was not aware of. I didn't realize Floyd wasn't in the car alone. And those other people didn't resist the cops. They didn't resist arrest, and they're fine. Right? They're standing off to the side talking to the police, and they are completely fine. Third, you'll hear in these clips that George Floyd is begging not to be put in the car. He says he would rather be on the ground than in the car. And he is saying, "I cannot breathe," before he is even on the ground. Now, this does mesh with the original state autopsy report, which suggested that the cause of death was not asphyxiation. The problem with a homicide case is you have to prove proximate cause. You have to prove that the cops actually caused his death. But it seems a lot more like, at best, stress exacerbated an already bad medical situation. When they arrived, he was not lucid. When they arrived, he was already acting wild and claiming he could not breathe. The reason I'm bringing this up is not to say that you should be allowed to kneel on somebody's neck for 8 minutes. The reason I'm saying this is because when the media do not cover these cases and include all of the fact pattern, what you end up with is a belief that these guys will definitely end up in jail. And then it turns out that the fact pattern is a little more complicated and they may very well get off. So if you liked the riots last time around, wait until the officers are acquitted because of the prosecutorial overcharge brought by AG Keith Ellison in Minnesota. Here's a little bit of the tape that was released yesterday. The media are not covering this tape because, again, it cuts against a lot of the case that's being made, namely that the officers knew that Floyd was dying and disregarded everything. Again, he was claiming he could not breathe when he was sitting in the car, okay, which suggests that when he claimed he couldn't breathe lying on the ground, they were going to take that with exactly the same level of seriousness. Okay, here's a little bit of the tape.
I see your hands.
Damn, man.
Stay in the car. Let me see your other hand.
I'm sorry.
Let me see your other hand.
Please, Bazaar.
Both hands.
Do nothing, man. I got shot the same way Bazaar was before.
Okay, well, when I say let me see your hands, you put your hands up.
Okay, so he doesn't put his hands on the wheel. Then he does. Once he does, the officer with his gun drawn puts the gun back down.
Step out and face away.
Floyd is basically begging the officers in this tape. I mean, it's all
Step out
terrible.
and face away.
Floyd is begging the officers, "I don't want to be hurt." And they're saying, "We're not going to hurt you. Everything's fine."
Step out and face away.
Okay, and everything was fine until he resisted arrest, which does not justify the actions of the officers, but makes it much more difficult to claim premeditated murder, which is what they're trying to claim, basically. Okay, then he says he doesn't want to get in the car. He says, and they're saying to him, "We'll open the window for you." They're saying, "We'll open the window for you. We'll make sure that you can breathe." Right? These are not the actions of officers who deeply do not care about George Floyd, at least up to the point where he's on the ground, right, and actively resisting arrest. Here's a little bit more of the tape.
Please, crack it for me and stuff, man. I am claustrophobic for real, officer.
You got him?
Could you please crack it for me, please?
Yes, I'm
cracking. Stay with me, man.
I will.
Please stay with me, man. Thank you. Okay.
Grab a seat.
Okay.
I'll roll the windows down, okay?
They're saying they'll stay with him. They'll roll the windows down for him.
And I just had COVID, man. I don't want to go back to that.
He says, "I already have COVID."
Hey, listen.
Dang, man.
Listen.
I'm not that kind of guy.
I'll roll the windows down.
Please, man.
He's already claiming that he's going to die before he even gets in the car because of claustrophobia and because he was, in fact, high on fentanyl, according to the autopsy reports. Again, the point here is not the officers did the right thing. That's not the point at all. The point is the media's irresponsible coverage of situations like this is going to lead to revelations in the jury trial that may end up with the acquittal of the officers. So you should be made aware of this before you actually get to trial. The media instead largely ignored this yesterday, which suggests that they're going to cover this in the same way they covered the Michael Brown trial. They're going to suggest that Michael Brown was wrongly shot, even when the evidence went the other way, and then the officer ended up being exonerated. Now, in this case, George Floyd should not have been treated that way by the officers. An assault charge was probably more justifiable on the grounds that have been put forward. So this is, again, the wonderful job by the media all around here. Wonderful job by the media. Facts don't care about your feelings, and it's a fact that The Ben Shapiro Show is the largest conservative podcast in the nation. Be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on all of our content.